Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another Intel Report, the series that treats Command & Conquer Rivals like a round of Apex Legends, rounding all of the units up, throwing them into an ever-shrinking arena, and seeing which one floats to the top. Yeah, I've been playing a bit of Apex recently. Does it show? Well, if you like what you see in this video, drop a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and consider joining my Patreon crew and my Discord server. Today we are going to be looking at the new GDI Orca Bomber. The Orca Bomber, designed by GDI's engineering corps, is a bomber aircraft first deployed during the Second Tiberium War. The bomber's heavy bomb load allows it to devastate large formations of enemy ground units. However, its slow speed and large radar signature make it easy prey for enemy fighter aircraft and ground-based anti-aircraft units. The Orca Bomber, not to be confused with the Orca, is a large, slow-moving carpet bomber built from the helipad. It drifts slowly across the battlefield, raining destruction on any ground units it passes, be they friend or foe. Be very aware of this when using the Orca Bomber, as any attack run you start will also damage any of your own units that happen to get in the way. Now, each bomb affects the hex that the Orca Bomber was on when dropped, and the 6 hexes around it. This is an area the size of a Juggernaut blast or an ion cannon strike, just for comparison. Once an Orca Bomber begins its bombing run, it will continue to drop its payload until all bombs are released, regardless of if there are actually any targets nearby. Once its barrage is started, it will not end until it is spent, and then the Orca Bomber must reload. During this time, it is utterly helpless against ground anti-aircraft units, so be prepared to micro it away to safety, either behind battlefield obstructions or, preferably, friendly units. The Orca Bomber is devastating for clearing away swathes of your opponent's army if it's given half the chance. Just be aware that it will hit anything and everything in its path, including your own units, harvesters, and base. If your opponent is using Orca Bombers, there are a few tactics you can use to deal with them. Firstly, the Orca Bomber has no way of dealing with aircraft whatsoever. It can't hit them. This means that they are utterly helpless against hammerheads or phantoms, but even banshees and a humble Talon can both avoid its firepower and pull it out of the sky with frightening speed. Now, if you happen to not be running aircraft, I'd first question why the heck not, and secondly, I'd suggest waiting for the Orca Bomber to finish its attack run, then move in with either pit bulls or attack bikes, or possibly stealth tanks if you're running those. Now, for pit bulls or attack bikes, you'll likely need to send in 2 at once in order to kill the bomber quickly before it reloads. But as the bombers are relatively fragile, they should fall apart quite quickly. Orca bombers are also fairly expensive to field. If you can pressurize your opponent hard enough, you may be able to stall them long enough to keep any Orca bombers they have relegated to their hangars. They're much cheaper than tech though, so a single harvester kill can bring them to the battlefield quickly, even if your opponent is running on a single harvester. Now that you understand what the Orca Bomber does, and have an idea on how to counter it, how can you run one of these flying powerhouses in your own decks? Well, here I have 2 sample decks that I could suggest. The first of these is a Jackson air deck. Now, the aim of this deck is to keep your costs low early on to save up as much Tiberium as possible. Missile squads and shockwave troopers are your scouts and your early units. JJTs exist here to give you a heavy punch against enemy anti-aircraft vehicles, attack bikes, pit bulls, and the like, as everything else in your deck is either infantry or the helipad. Now, drones are surprisingly good for holding pads and are great for assisting in anti-infantry duty. Hammerheads are here to keep the skies clear of heavy anti-air aircraft, and the Orca Bombers, well, they're your main cleanup agents. The deck is quite fragile and micro-intensive, but I assure you it's great fun to play, requiring you to focus on your army's maneuverability in order to win the day. Now, the second deck is loosely inspired by the Nod Inferno deck that Alicia Destiny used to run, and basically looks at the Orca Bomber as fitting a similar niche to the Inferno. Now the idea here is to dominate the early game with efficient trades and then ramp up into the helipad for your end game. If your opponent is sending air at that point, dominate the skies with hammerheads. If your opponent is sending ground units at them, obliterate those with your Orca Bombers. Now in order to facilitate this, we open into the War Factory with War Dogs. We then have Pit Bulls and Predators to deal with ground vehicles and light aircraft early on, allowing you to stay with only one building open for a long time. This will help keep your expenses down and allows you to move up to the helipad quickly. Now the Shockwave Troopers are here for quickly dealing with enemy anti-vehicle infantry. If your opponent insists on sending out JJTs or laser troopers, that kind of thing, you have Shockwaves as your backup. Now the aim is not to spend much in the way of Tiberium. Trade efficiently, snipe their Harvester if you can for the bonus, but treat this deck as if it were an aggro deck otherwise. If needs be, you can try and pull out a second Harvester early on if the board is safe enough for it, but otherwise I prefer to go for the kill. So with all that said and done, let's move on to the featured replay, which I will be using to showcase this second deck. I have to say that I actually really like the new lava map aesthetic, and even Stonewall isn't actually as bad to play on. Now here you can see that both Jaden and I go straight into a War Factory opener, which leaves us both a little bit stumped as to what to do next. She does try to block my Harvester, but fortunately the field is close enough that the Cyber Wheels can't quite get there in time. We then both proceed to dance around a little bit, unsure if we should be charging the missile or leaving it to just stagnate. So I move my War Dogs around and scout, and had I thought about it a bit more, I would not have built that Pit Bull. Because I can see the Scorpion tank on its way, and a Pit Bull versus a Scorpion, it's really not going to do much. As you'll see, I barely dent the paintwork, and instead waste 40 Tiberium on a Pit Bull that ultimately doesn't do much. My Predator tank rolls in, and that begins the cleanup instead. That's put me on a bit of a back foot in regards to my economy. And then I follow this up with another stupid mistake. For some reason I choose to abandon the bottom left pad completely in order to try and contest or take the other two pads. Now Jaden's not going to allow me to get on that top pad with a Scorpion there, and the bottom pad, yeah, again, I can only contest it, so that first missile goes straight to Jaden. Now here I do actually build up into the helipad. I am preparing to bring that Orca Bomber out. There's a lot of tanks on the field. It's about time that I started carpet bombing the battlefield. A Predator comes along just here just to start dealing with some of these ground forces, thin them out a little bit, and then we'll go from there. Stupidly, I misclick on a hammerhead. Now, thanks to the Fog of War, Jaden hasn't noticed this yet. She just knows that there's something on that top pad. So I just, nothing much else to do, send that hammerhead in to do a little bit of base damage. While I bring out the actual Orca Bomber, pull that hammerhead back, and start to clean up Jaden's ground forces. As you can see, those bombs do quite a bit of damage to that Scorpion. I don't quite manage to get into range of the bikes in time, but I can pull up Strong Arms turret, and then pull my Orca Bomber to safety to avoid that stealth tank. Now I know that stealth tanks will clean out an Orca Bomber in a single hit. So now I need something to move onto that bottom pad quickly. That's where the Pit Bull comes in. The Scorpion is going to move over to deal with that stealth tank. And the Orca Bomber, you've seen it firing into impunity there. It crushed the bikes in one hit and then empties the rest of its payload onto an empty pad. So here comes my second Orca Bomber. As you can see, that stealth tank takes the first Orca Bomber out instantly. Moving across to the artillery, the bikes are one shot and the artillery are taken out fairly quickly. I also just want to spend this brief moment to just appreciate how amazing artillery actually now is. Well, okay, not amazing, but at least it's usable, which I am super happy about. That's one of the best changes I've seen in a long time. Now here with that artillery punching the pad, that Predator is gone, but again I can bring the Orca out just to flatten everything in its distance, bring a Scorpion out to hold the pad, and that second missile, there's nothing Jaden can do at that point. The skies are mine, the ground is fairly equal. She's trying to take out my Orca Bombers with the stealth tanks, and those stealth tanks just cannot hold up against the Predator tanks. Second missile goes to me, and good game to Jaden. I hope that's helpful. Be sure to check out my other intel reports if you're struggling against certain units, or looking for tips as to how to best apply a new unit in your deck. Also check out my Acting on Instinct series with analysis of game mechanics and solid advice on how to get ahead in Rivals. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to be up to date and ahead of the game. Happy sailing, and see you on the battlefield!